So first of all, I'd like to thank you for coming. My migraine medication gives me really bad dry mouth, so it is possible I will be drinking a lot through this. This is water. There are some people here today that are helping me out, and that is Stacia, and she's my slide person. And then Tallon will be walking around doing recording things, and then Gabby will be sitting there, but maybe she might be helping Tallon out at some point. So my name is Adelaide Blair, and most of you know me as Heidi. As part of my graduation project, I am supporting Rosehaven in order to honor the land that I am currently squatting on, as well as thanking Portland for sheltering me. So there's a QR code if you want to learn more about this organization. I can't read the thing, but I think it says, to provide day shelter resources, emotional support, and community connections to women, children, and marginalized genders experiencing homelessness and poverty. And for those of which this matters, it was started as a Catholic organization, but it is no longer. It is just a regular 501c3. Okay, I think I'm going to start. I'm a little bit nervous, but I know that I shouldn't be because I know all of you want me to do well. But yeah, I'm going to be a little shaky at first. Okay, so welcome to my presentation, Global Network, Circles of Corruption in the Art Market. This will run about 40 minutes, and then there'll be time to ask questions afterwards. So about a year and a half ago, I was watching a couple documentaries about the Salvator Mundi, which is the most expensive painting that's ever gone at auction for almost $500 million. It's a picture of Christ, and it has a somewhat disputed attribution. A lot of people think it's by Leonardo, and then it's had this very extensive reconstruction, which many people believe that it is, if it was by Leonardo, it's not anymore. So I was watching a couple documentaries, and this guy kept popping up, and his name is Yves Bouvier, and he is a Swiss businessman who specializes in shipping and storage. And at the time, the documentaries that I was seeing those, he had his fingers in a lot of free ports. And for those who don't know, free ports are warehouses that are not subject to the tax laws of the country they reside in. So if you're a rich person and you want to buy a very expensive painting, but you don't want to pay taxes on it, you will just have it go into a free port, and as long as it doesn't leave, you can not pay taxes on it. And this is a kind of structure that is really set up to make art seem like an investment. So this guy has a lot, he's like a mover and a shaker, but nobody knows who he is because he's very much on the down low. So also around the same time, I became aware of this woman named Amy Cappallazzo, who is kind of his polar opposite. So she is very valued in the art world. She's really above board. A lot of people think that she's this extremely competent person. And she used to be the chairman of post-war and contemporary development at Christie's, at which point she quit to form her own agency, Art Agency Partners. In 2016, she was acquired, but her business was acquired by Sotheby's, mostly because they wanted her expertise. So she stayed with them for 5 years, and when her contract ran out, she founded another art agency called Art Intelligence Global. And they'll do whatever you want, buying, selling, investment, creating a market, they can do that for you. So I was wondering, like, how hard would it be to link these people up? Because it's highly doubtful that they've actually ever met. It's possible, but he doesn't speak English and doesn't do a ton of stuff in the contemporary market. So I'm going to try to link them together, and we'll see what happens. So the first link is Dmitry Rubolovlev. And his name's really hard for me to say, so I might be referring to him as the Russian oligarch. So he's a Russian oligarch and billionaire businessman and investor. In 1995, he became chairman of the Russian fertilizer producer Hugh Crawley. In 1996, he was arrested for the murder of one of his business rivals and spent 11 months in pretrial detention before the witness recanted and he was acquitted. And shortly after that, in 2011, he became the majority owner and president of Monaco's football club, Monaco AS. And shortly after that, this guy defrauds him of about $1 billion. So let's talk about how he did that. Because it happened more, he did one thing with Salvator Mundi that we're going to talk about, but just remember, he's done this with a lot of other paintings. So Rubolov moves to Switzerland and decides that he wants to collect art. And Bouvier is like, hey, I can help you, I can advise you on that. Now, normally shippers don't become art advisors because they have secret information, like they've been inside people's houses, they know who has what, so it's usually considered to be a conflict of interest. But Bouvier is ignoring that, and so he has this art advisory business, but it's on the down low. Nobody knows about it. So Rubolov believes that Bouvier is his agent and is working for him for 2% of the transaction. Excuse me. Bouvier believes that he is his own agent and decides that in this transaction, he buys the Salvator Mundi for about $80 million and then sells it to Rubolov for $127 million. And that is a really high markup, and it's more than 2%. Okay, so our next person in the chain is Loic Gauger. And Rubolov decides that he doesn't want the Salvator Mundi anymore. It's tainted for him. So he goes to Christie's, and Loic Gauger decides that he wants to handle this sale. Now, he is a Swiss specialist in contemporary art, and which is notably, the Salvator Mundi is not a contemporary art, no matter how much restoration work it's had in this decade. So Loic Gauger decides to put it in the contemporary and modern auction because people who buy old masters are really knowledgeable about old masters. And so he figures that the people in the contemporary market are just not going to know anything, so they're going to want to buy it. And he makes a huge spectacle of this, and it goes for $450 million to an agent of Mohammed bin Salman in Saudi Arabia. So he works for Christie's. And if you remember, Amy Cappallazzo used to work for Christie's. And in fact, those two worked at Christie's at the same time. This took me less than an hour of research to figure this out, but I can even do it quicker. So Amy Cappallazzo used to work for Sotheby's. Yves Bouvier used Sotheby's to do this transaction for the Salvator Mundi. What most people don't realize is that auction companies also facilitate private transactions. Only about a third of the art market, it takes place at auction. So the rest of it is happening behind closed doors. And Sotheby's and Christie's want it to be behind their closed doors because they're going to get a cut. Okay, so yeah, that's it. Yeah, it was that easy for me to put these people together. And the reason why is because the art world is definitely bigger than this, but it's not that big. So what I thought I would do, since this was so easy, is just sort of break out and try to show some other relationships in this market of people who are related through scandals. Turns out that's a lot of fun. Okay, so Bouvier is connected to Catherine Houghton Blay, and she maintains that he stole maybe 60 some odd paintings for her, and 2 of those Picassos got sold to Rubolov. Now, Bouvier is like, no, I gave you $8 million in that account in Liechtenstein. And she's like, dude, that was for something else. The reason why she has so many Picassos is she is Picasso's stepdaughter. Another person that is associated with Yves Bouvier is Wolfgang Beltracchi, who is a German forger who made about $100 million off forgeries of Max Ernst and Fernand Léger. Bouvier is related to him through gallery relationships and offshore entities. Now, Bouvier was one of those people whose dealings were revealed in the Panama Papers, which was a revelation, like a bunch of papers leaked from this place called Mossack and Fonseca. And a lot of the people you'll be seeing here today had information leaked, because almost all these people have offshore things happening. Okay. Sorry about the water. Okay, so it may not surprise you to learn that Rybolovlev wants a new art advisor. So he goes to Sandy Heller, who is the most important art advisor in the world, and he has a lot of clients. And one of his clients is Josh Kushner, who is the brother of Jared Kushner, who is the son-in-law of Donald Trump. Now, Trump has a couple of art scandals in his life as well, because twice he has bought portraits of himself with money from the Trump Foundation, which is supposedly a charitable organization. In 2015, he bought a portrait through a dummy bidder for $60,000, and in 2018, he bid $10,000 and won a painting of himself at another charity auction. So, Trump is related to Rudy Giuliani, or as we like to call him now, co-conspirator number one. And Giuliani's got his own scandal in the background. So in 1999, the Brooklyn Museum put on a show called Sensation that was the art of Charles Saatchi. He's a British collector that was showing things from what they called the Young British Artists, or the YBAs. And this was artists like Tracy Emin, Damien Hirst, Chris O'Feely, plus other artists from Saatchi's collection. So the whole thing is kind of scandalous because it's basically was seen as Saatchi trying to get the museum stamp of approval on his collection so that he could benefit by selling these things for a lot more money. But Giuliani actually tried to cut off Cindy funding, evict the museum, and remove its directors because there was a painting by Chris O'Feely that was of the Virgin Mary that had elephant dung on it, and he decided this was blasphemous. He actually did not succeed at that, and all of those artists are like super famous now. So Trump is connected to his lovely wife, Melania. And Melania's got her own little art scandal happening right now. So she just released a collection of Apollo 11 related NFTs that may violate NASA's policies. Because as stated in the NASA Media Usage Guideline, they do not wish for their images to be used in NFTs. She actually started minting NFTs in 2021, and it was referred to as the Head of State collection. And she actually sold it for $180,000. But people went to go research who that was, and it turns out that it was probably her, because nobody else wanted them. Okay, so Donald Trump also has a connection to Andy Warhol, because he commissioned Warhol to make some work about the Trump Towers. And Trump neither liked nor understood them, and so never paid for them. And you don't not pay Andy Warhol. So he was pretty much trashing Trump for the rest of his life. So let's go back to Sandy Heller. He has a customer named of Steve Cohen. Oh, I spelled that wrong. Nope. Oh, okay. Steve Cohen. Now, I have a lot of information about Steve Cohen. He owns 97.2% of the New York Mets. I think that's baseball. He is the founder. He is the founder of hedge fund Point72 Asset Management, and in 2003, his earlier company pleaded guilty to insider trading and agreed to pay $1.8 billion in fines in one of the biggest criminal cases against a hedge fund. Cohen was prohibited from managing outside money for 2 years as part of the settlement reached in the civil case over his accountability for the scandal. He is also currently on the board of the Museum of Modern Art, which is possibly the most important museum in America. So let's look at a few other members of this board. So one member is Marie-Josée Kravis, and she is an economist who serves on the board of the International Advisory Board of the Federal Reserve Bank of New York. She is also married to Henry Kravis, who is the co-founder of KKR, which is a private equity company. Climate activists are trying really hard to get her off this board because KKR, invests a lot in the gas and oil industry. Kravis is also connected to Trump because he's a huge donor, and in fact gave $1 million to his inauguration in 2017. You know the one, the biggest one we've ever had. And I also forgot to mention that Cohen is a big Trump donor as well. Okay, so Marie-Josée had her predecessor as on the board as board president is Leon Black. I put my own name here. I am not related to Leon Black. You're going to understand why. Okay, so he had to resign as the chair of the MoMA board and his company, Apollo Global Management, because he had really close ties to Jeffrey Epstein. And because he had given Epstein $158 million for tax and estate planning purposes. Okay, so I'm going to read some stuff and then I'm going to have a little real talk thing. So I found out after I had put him on here, like a couple weeks ago, that he, in January, agreed to pay $62.5 million to the US Virgin Islands in January to be released from any potential claims arising out of the territory's 3-year investigation into the sex trafficking operation of the disgraced financier Jeffrey Epstein. And we know that Epstein was a rapist. Leon Black actually has 3 accusations of rape against him, one of which just came last week. So the tone of this presentation is supposed to be kind of light, but I decided to keep them in because when I say that there are bad actors in this environment, like the bad ones are really bad. It's not funny, but I think it is the point I am actually trying to make. Okay, so Epstein and Donald Trump were friends for 17 years. And how their friendship ended was Epstein asked Trump to come over to his place in Florida and look at a piece of property. Trump decided he actually wanted that property, so he outbid Epstein by $41 million, and then he turned around and sold it to this particular Russian oligarch, Rybolovlev. And after Trump became president and people were like, he's in the pocket of the Russians, that transaction is one of the reasons why people said that. Okay, I'm going to do a few more people on the board. One of them is Mimi Haas. She is the widow of Peter Haas, and she is a billionaire businesswoman because her husband was the great-grandnephew of Levi Strauss, the denim dude. And she recently, last year, spent $100,000 to oppose Proposition 30 in California. Proceeds from the 1.75% tax increase on income over $2 million would have gone to a state fund for wildfire prevention and electrical vehicle programs, but it was defeated. Now, we also, and she's a vice chair of MoMA. We have another vice chair of MoMA, and I am afraid that I am going to butcher her name, and that is Maja Owiri. And she is a billionaire descendant of Fritz Hoffmann LaRoche, founder of the Switzerland-based pharma behemoth Roche. So aside from their usual pharma nonsense, in 1999, they pleaded guilty to participation in a worldwide conspiracy to raise and fix prices for vitamins sold in the US and globally. They paid $500 million in fees. So there's like 1 million people on this board, and by 1 million, I mean like 20. So I'm only going to talk about one more, and that's Anna Deavere Smith. She's an American actress, a playwright, and a professor, and she is an American treasure, and I love her, and I put her on here because this board makes me really depressed. Okay. I don't even know what to tell you. Okay, so let's go back to Loic Gauger. So he no longer works for Christie's. He has started his own company called Particle, and they are the stupidest company that ever existed. Okay, so I am going to read this because this gets kind of complicated. Particle buys a masterpiece, and the first one they bought was Love is in the Air by Banksy. So they digitize this work and divide it into a grid, 100 by 100, and that they divide it, yeah, and so you can buy an NFT of one of those squares in the grid, and that square is called a particle. The goal stated on their website is to acquire and tokenize the world's greatest masterpieces and build one of the best collections out there. Particle then sells off 90% of the NFT to folks who want to own a part of that painting, and the physical artwork is given to the Particle Foundation, a nonprofit trust, which will care for and display the work in real-world and metaverse situations. Okay, so nobody wants that. Because you're not actually buying a share in the painting. What you're buying is a share in a digital copy of a painting that actually exists in the real world, and you don't get anything, you don't really have anything to do with that. So they did actually have to change their business model, and currently, you're now buying a share of the item, and the item that they have up for sharing is an H.R. Giger alien figure, which admittedly is cool, and I love Alien, but you could not get more tech bro if you tried. And that is who a lot of these, that's who's buying these. Okay, so let's go back to Gauger. He is really good friends with Leonardo DiCaprio, the actor, and he is friends with a gentleman named Joe Low. So Joe Low is accused of masterminding an international money laundering and bribery scheme that stole billions from the Malaysian state investment fund known as 1MDB. And he also helped finance Wolf of Wall Street. And so he's a really good friend. So he loves DiCaprio so much that he gave him a Picasso painting, a Jean-Michel Basquiat collage, and a Diane Arbus photograph, all of which DiCaprio had to give to the American government. He couldn't keep them. And then Joe Low had to return a Van Gogh and a Monet out of his own collection. And then he is currently a fugitive, and no one knows where he's at. Okay. DiCaprio was also a previous customer of Lisa Schiff, who has recently been sued. So she was a very respected art advisor, and she's being sued right now because she's accused of running a pyramid scheme. She told customers she bought things, but then never fully paid for them, and then just kept that money. And then she told people she sold things, but the money never hit their accounts. It all went to her. So, and these people who are suing her really, really liked her and thought of her as a friend. And, you know, but they're going for it. So DiCaprio was in several films with Robert De Niro. And his dad was a painter, and he placed some of those paintings with an art dealer named Larry Salander, who at one time had one of the best galleries in the world. But by late 2007, he had been sued by numerous customers and business partners who claimed that Salander and his company had defrauded them by consigning work without permission and orchestrating art-related Ponzi schemes. Now, One of Salander's other customers was Hester Diamond, who was an art collector and an art dealer and an interior designer who she started out collecting modern work but then went into old masters. And there are two really interesting things about her. One, I mean, she's an interesting person in her own right, but she was widowed 3 times, and she is the mother of Mike D from the Beastie Boys. And when she passed away, they did sell off that collection, and it was pretty astounding. Okay, I'm going to move over here now for a while. So Amy Cappallazzo also has a lot of interesting customers. So one of those people is Daniel Loeb, who is your just regular finance dude, hedge fund guy. I couldn't find anything that exciting about him. But his great aunt is Ruth Handler, who invented Barbie and co-created Mattel. There's also another really interesting thing about her, which was in 1974, she had to leave Mattel because she was found guilty of fraud in filing false reports to the SEC. She received a $57,000 fine and 2,500 hours of community service, which I think it was a record at the time. Okay, so another one of Amy Cappallazzo's customers is a gentleman named Dakish Janot. And oh yeah. I was like, why are they laughing? Okay, so he is a Greek businessman, and he has his very own art scandal. So in 2009, the New Museum of Contemporary Art in Manhattan showcased his collection in a 3-story exhibit with Jeff Koons doing the curating. It turns out that Janot is on the board of the new museum and that he had been collecting Koons for like 25 years. And this is kind of a scandal because when museums show things, they're giving them their stamp of approval. And when it tends to raise monetary values as well as cultural values. So both of these men benefited reputationally and monetarily from that show. Jeff Koons, you may recognize as the dude who does all of the big balloon sculptures, the metal ones. Investment bros love him. And part of that is because he used to be an investment bro back in the 80s. Janot is also really good friends with George Condo. I don't know anything bad about him, but I don't know why people are collecting his work. It feels like he's just rehashing Picasso. So, I mean, I don't know, but a lot of people do. Janot is also really good friends with Maurizio Cattelan, who you may know as the dude who duct taped the banana to the wall. Okay, so.
It all makes sense now.
Yeah. Janot is also really good friends with a man named Kenny Schachter. And Kenny Schachter is an art dealer. Some people think he's an artist. He's a gossip columnist. He's an NFT enthusiast. He was judge on the exhibit Finding the Next Great Artist, which was on MTV. And as far as I can tell, he doesn't have any real pants. I have only ever seen him in sweatpants or tuxedo pants. And this is, I'm looking. So Kenny is super hooked up. And he is connected to Jerry Gagosian, who is an Instagram influencer. And this name is like a portmanteau name. Jerry is for Jerry Saltz, the art critic, and Gagosian is for Larry Gagosian, who is probably the most important dealer in the world. But I'm not actually going to talk about him today because he's connected to every single person on here. You can just take that to be. Okay, so Jerry Gagosian is actually a woman named Hildy Lynn Helfenstein, and she basically kind of tries to skewer the art world. Although it's been really interesting because I've been watching her and her husband try to parlay her Instagram influencer power to become a more active person in the art world, and it's actually kind of cringy. So I've actually had to just stop watching that. So Schachter was also really good friends with Inigo Philbrick, who was found guilty of $86 million wire fraud scheme involving art by Jean-Michel Basquiat, Christopher Wool, Yayoi Kusama, and Donald Judd. What he would do, he would sell more than 100% ownership in artworks to multiple investors. He sold things or used them as collateral on loans without the knowledge of their co-owners, and he furnished fraudulent documents to artificially inflate the value of artworks. He also took Schachter for over $1 million. So, Philbrick was mentored by Jay Jopling, who is the owner of the White Cube Gallery, and they have outposts all over the world right now. He was one of the first ones to show Lucian Freud, Gilbert and George, Jake and Dinos Chapman. He was also, or he has been, Tracy Emin's dealer for the past 30 years. And she is one of the YBAs that showed here at the Sensation Show. And she recently, I mean, not super recently, but she had a cancer scare. And so she's really been wanting to like get her legacy set aside or set down. So she has started like an art center in Margate, which is where she's from. It is economically disadvantaged. And I really love her, except for one thing. So she is dating Kenny Schachter right now, which I think is kind of icky, and I'm hoping she buys him real pants, but you know, I don't want to judge on pants. Okay, Jay Jopling also was one of the first people to show Damien Hirst, who was another one of the YBAs. So he's my personal nemesis. So he's doing a smart thing. So usually when artists get money, they're getting money from the primary market, which is from their gallery or things that they sell directly. The secondary market, though, is where a lot of the real money is, and that goes to collectors who were like, I'm gonna flip this, I'm gonna sell this thing and get more money. So Hirst's thing, and I don't blame him for doing this, is trying to capture that money from the secondary market. And one of the ways he does that is he'll just make so many of the things. That thing up there, he made 10,000 of those. And you could either buy them or he would burn it up and give you an NFT. You know, so he's making so many things that, you know, things that just really don't have any meaning anymore. And he's also like super into NFTs right now. NFTs are like super douchey. It's built on blockchain, which is crypto. Don't buy them. Okay. So another person that Kenny Schachter knows is this new name, Beeple, who is a digital artist. And his real name is Mike Winkleman, and he's like an NFT pioneer. And he's the dude that had the NFT that sold for $69 million at Christie's, which is actually, that sale is more about pumping dollars into Ethereum than it is about any sort of referendum on his quality. So I'm going to break it down. So let's say that I am an Ethereum investor and I would like to cash out, but there's not enough people buying Ethereum. So what I do is I make this huge sale to this, buying this thing from this guy Beeple, and other people are going to start thinking that they can kind of cash in on this too and get those kind of returns. So in order to mint an NFT, you need Ethereum. In order to buy an NFT, you need Ethereum. So people want to be part of whatever this thing was, so they're buying a lot of Ethereum. So they're pumping dollars into it so that Beeple and the Ethereum dude can actually cash out because people are buying their Ethereum, and then they have real dollars, which they can actually do stuff with. Because part of the problem with crypto is it doesn't do anything. Okay, sorry. So Beeple is very loosely connected to Jeff Koons. Jeff Koons uses assistants to do his work because he just doesn't need to do it himself anymore. And Beeple also needs assistants to do any sort of things in the real world because he's a digital artist. So a lot of Koons's former assistants have moved over to work with Beeple. I forgot about that picture. Okay, so recently, Beeple held a huge opening for a new space he was putting together that has a showroom, a workspace, and an exhibition hall. And Kenny Schachter was there, but there were a few other interesting people there. One of them was Pamela Joyner, who is also one of the millions of people on the MoMA board. Another person that was there was Tycho Mugrabi, who is part of the Mugrabi family. And this consists of the father, Jose, and sons Alberto, which is Tycho's real name, and another son, David, and their spouses. Now, the Mugrabis own about 1,000 Andy Warhols, and they will show up at every public auction to keep those prices up. So they'll bid just to move prices up, but they will take things home with them if they need to. So I'm going to link them to Andy Warhol. And that is the only link on here of people who don't actually know each other. Everybody else, I can like provide a picture or an article, but that's the only one. So Tycho is also connected to Trump through donations. The Mugrabi family are friends with George Condo and also collect his work. They are also really good friends with Damien Hirst. So in 2008, right after the collapse of Lehman Brothers, Damien Hirst decided that he was going to take his own work to auction, which is actually, at the time, was pretty unheard of, because artists make money from primary sales, collectors make money from auction sales. So he decided to skip all that and just go straight to the auction. He made $200 million, and the Mugrabis were there cheering him on all the way. Okay, the Mugrabi family is also connected to Jeff Koons, because all these people love Jeff Koons. And, by the way, Jeff Koons is a former client of Amy Cappallazzo, because he is also a collector as well as an artist. Okay, so the Mugrabi family started collecting because of a man named Jeffrey Deitch, he was the dealer of the Museum of Contemporary Art in LA for 3 years, but he's also an important dealer. He has a really good eye. I'm like, where is he? He has a really good eye for younger artists. Like, he was one of the first people to pay attention to Kehinde Wiley and Cicely Brown. In his youth, he was friends with Keith Haring and Jean-Michel Basquiat. And he also is really good friends with Jeff Koons, and threw his 50th birthday party. So another person that the Mugrabis are collecting is Amawako Boafo. And he's from Ghana, and he is a figurationist, I think, painter. And the Mugrabis moved pretty early on him, so they've been collecting him for a long time. He is also related to Jeffrey Deitch, because Jeffrey Deitch at one time handled a few paintings that Boafo's actual dealer, Bennett Roberts, gave to him to handle. And Deitch, through this transaction, is related to a dude named Stefan Simkowitz, who is a notorious art flipper. So he says that he is supporting young artists by giving them money and buying lots of stuff from them. But dealers are like, well, that's true, but you're causing their prices to rise too fast, and they can't sustain that kind of thing. And once art prices start going down, you can't really get them back up again. So Simkowitz wants to buy a Boafo painting from Deitch called The Lemon Bathing Suit. Deitch is like, dude, you're a flipper, I'm not going to sell to you. Simkowitz is like, I promise I won't flip it. So he buys it and then immediately flips it. And it may or may not surprise you to learn that he was friends with Kenny Schachter. Okay, so Jeffrey Deitch, it's pronounced Deitch, but it looks like Deitch to me. Okay, so he is friends with Don and Mira Rubel. And they are the most important collectors in America. And I'm not sure if they actually have like such a good eye, or if it's because people see whatever they buy and just buy that thing and the value goes up. They have a private museum, I think it's a nonprofit now, and they have a residency that is very prestigious. And their money came from their salaries when they were younger, and they have some hotel investments. But Steve's brother, or Don's brother, Steve, is Steve Rubell, who created Studio 54. So he is, in fact, connected to Andy Warhol. Okay. We're almost at the end. Okay, so the Rubells have a really interesting contact, and his name is Amir Shariat. And he is an artist manager, which is a relatively newish sort of job. You know, because sometimes they have agents, and mostly they have dealers. But artist managers, you know, there's a lot more moving parts now for super famous artists and the ways that they can make money. And he has actually gotten 3 people into the Rubells' residency. So people are like, oh, he's the Rubell whisperer. But he has this really weird scandal in his past. In 2014, Iskander Maleki sued his former art advisor, Amir Shariat, for taking undisclosed commissions of about $1 million from the sale and purchase of art over 9 years. The couple say they introduced Shariat to their contacts in the art world, and in July 2004 made an oral agreement with Shariat for him to purchase and sell works on their behalf, thus enabling him to establish his reputation in the art industry. It was agreed that he would not take any payment or commission for those services because he was instead happy to build himself a reputation. Okay, and Shariat is like, I did not tell you I would work for free for 9 years. And so it's hard to tell if like he's pulling a Bouvier and just siphoning money off the transactions, or if these people were just like got mad at him for some reason and are making this up. Because but maybe a billionaire will in fact expect that people would like to work for them for 9 years for free. That might be, that's equally feasible. So Shariat is also connected to Amawaka Boafo, and he's the guy who got him into the Rubells' residency. He also gave Boafo some really bad advice. So when Simkowitz sold the lemon bathing suit, Boafo wanted to buy it, but he didn't have the money. So Shariat recommended some dudes he knew that they'll buy it, and then you'll give them some other artwork, and then they'll use that artwork to cash out. But those guys kept the lemon bathing suit, kept the art, flipped all this stuff, kept all the money, and all of this was legal because in the art world, everything is like done on a handshake. So I don't know if this guy is a bad agent or not, but he's on my list. I'm going to watch this guy. I have a Google alert set up for him. So if he shows up anywhere, I will be there. Okay, so I have one last connection, which is the Rubells are connected to Amy Cappallazzo because early in her career, she worked at their foundation. So that's it. But this is only like a small part of the art world. You could imagine a board getting bigger and bigger and adding people. They're all going to be connected. And I guarantee you that I missed some connections in here. Because eventually I had to stop and actually write the presentation. Although I do have to tell you, this is the most fun research I've ever done. Yeah, so but you can see why it might be hard to tell who is the good actor and who is the bad actor, because they are all so intertwined. Okay, that's it. Does anybody have any questions? Thank you. Are you slow clapping me, Travis? But does anybody have any questions? It's okay if you don't. Okay, thank you all. Enjoy. Oh, wait, Deb.
How do you sleep after this? I don't know because it's going out because I will be up tonight messaging you. So
I am not a person who kind of goes down conspiratorial thinking routes. You know, like there is a way that I could be like super obsessive about this, but I'm not because, you know, because Anna DeVere Smith is on the MoMA board, and she's like the only good one. But that's what lets me sleep at night. Okay.
Did your view of Amy shift throughout this research project?
So I've always known that her view of art is in opposition to my view of art. She's in a documentary called The Price of Everything, and just the way that she talks about art is as an investment, and she thinks about comps, like comparable art to put in catalogs and stuff. So I've always known exactly who she was. But she is one of those people, like, I'm not sure that she's a good person. You know, I don't really know. She's a mom, she has kids, but the way that she looks at art is as an investment, and that is not great. Yes, Gia?
So after doing all of this fun research, do you have an opinion on how people get into these relationships and connections with each other? Is it like politics then, where you just basically have to be corrupt a little bit?
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I mean, so in order to buy this kind of art, you have to have an in. Like, you can't just go to a gallery and be like, I would like your finest $1 million piece of art. Because they're gonna put you on a waiting list, and then you're gonna have to prove yourself. You're gonna have to like buy another piece of art to donate to a museum, or you're gonna have to fund their catalog for their upcoming show. Like, and in order to play in this field, you have to be really rich. And I gotta tell you, like, sure, like Loeb seems like a nice billionaire, but nobody is a billionaire without some moral compromise, because you could have spent that money on something else. You know, at best you're a hoarder, and at worst you're exploiting tons of people. So I think once you're at that point, maybe making some of these calculated decisions to think of art as an investment just seems part and parcel with the whole way of being. Kinda. I mean, it's rigged. It's not a scam so much as it's rigged towards certain people being rewarded. Yes, Ryan.
I just want to encourage everybody to come back in 10 minutes to see the conferral of 9 MFAs for Heidi and 8 of her graduating cohort.
I was like, do I get all 9? I'll take them.
After that, you do, Heidi.
Thank you.